Hello, welcome back to the Reading Mama. Today I thought I would share some fantasy novels for children. So I love fantasy, been a big fantasy kick this last year and renewing my love for fantasy. But my kids also have a kick for fantasy. And so I'm going to do a series of different videos sharing fantasy novels for kids that have been hits in our house. And I'm going to start with some animal focused fantasy where the main characters are animals. They would also be very much in the medieval kind of setting where you're going to have swords and things like that. And so they are somewhat intense, but I'll get into that as I go through some of them. Let me grab all of them. Okay, we're going to start with Redwall by Brian Jacques. Now, Redwall series is insanely long. I think there's like 11 books maybe in the whole series. There's a lot. And from what I understand, you can really pick them up anywhere and start. We started with Redwall because it's called the Redwall series and everything like that. We did audio first and it was phenomenal. My kids ended up having to get the book so that they could read ahead of the audiobook because they desperately needed to know what was going on. And my oldest went through and read the entire series, including we have Matameo and Mossflower, which I think Mossflower is technically one that is considered the beginning of it. And it has lovely maps inside. But here you're following some forest creatures. And in this first one, you have very much kind of a prodigal son story. And I really love it, but it is intense. So I will tell you, this is very intense. If you have sensitive readers, you may not want them to read it, or you may want to pre-read it first. Like I said, we did it as an audiobook for the whole family in the car. And I will say that my youngest at the time, not my youngest, but my youngest who understood kind of what was going on, did develop some imaginary friends that were scary based on the villain in this story. So, you know, keep that in mind. It is a bit intense. We got rid of it. It's good. The imaginary friend no longer bothers her. But it is a bit intense because you have these animals of the redwood, and they're trying, or the redwall, is it mossflower wood? Yeah. And they gather together in a place, and they have an evil, I think he's a rat, if I remember correctly. It's been a few years, but he's very vicious. He's a very vicious villain. He's very dark and depicted. We like it because light wins out in the end in these series, but they are somewhat intense. And so you want to keep that in mind. But you follow, what is his name? Martin. I'm just going to redo that because, like I said, it's been a while. The woodland creatures rush to desperate defense, but what can his peace-loving mice do against Clooney and his army? If only they had the sword of Martin the warrior. But its hiding place is long forgotten, even by the wise old mouse Methuselah. It is his young apprentice, Matthias, who sets out to find the legendary sword and becomes a most unlikely hero. And so this one follows the story of Matthias. They all follow different characters, but they're all basically following the legend around the Abbey of Redwall and what is going on there and trying to save the innocent animals from the wicked rats. And so I really enjoy this book. My kids have loved the other ones. Mossflower is a woman. And this one talks about, let's see here. Oh dear. This one still talks about Martin. That's like the beginning. So you could pick it up at Redwall and then go back and read those as prequels, which I think is how they were published. Or you can just read them from the beginning from publisher's order. But Brian Jacques has been a real favorite for our family. We bought 3 of them and the rest we get from the library because I like my kids to have books that they can get at the library when we're there, because so often the new ones are just trash. And so a lot of times we will not buy the whole series. But you're going to see where I'm going to argue with that here in a minute. Another series that we love is the Miss Mantle Chronicles. And again, we did this as an audiobook as a family. We love putting an audiobook in the car, and then whether we're going to the grocery store or we're going on a long trip, we have an audiobook ready to go. Miss Mantle, the audiobook was great, and I would like to purchase this. I know that there was a Kickstarter recently, and there's a newer printing of them. And I would like to buy the whole series because it was that phenomenal. Again, my oldest has read the entire series. I've only read book 1. And instead of mice, this time we're following squirrels. So you have these squirrels, and the first one is called Urchin of the Rising Star, or Rising Stars, rather. And Urchin is, he becomes part of the palace guard, and he uncovers a evil that is lurking within the palace. And there's a whole bunch of different woodland creatures, and you are dealing with all of the fighting and infighting within the palace, and a lot of things are going on, and there's a prophecy that's being fulfilled. And so it has a lot of those kind of vibes, if you will, today. But you've got the king, queen, very medieval, Middle Ages kind of setting, but with animals. So it's a little bit more child friendly. However, again, it does have some intense scenes, very concerning for Urchin and for several other characters. I believe there's a few deaths that are a bit heartbreaking. There are some moments in here where we were crying. So keep that in mind if you have sensitive readers. As always, pre-read. Audiobooks are great. But yeah, Miss Mantle Chronicles. So there's that one. And the last one I'm going to share with you, I know quite a bit more because I've read more of the books. Let's put it that way. I have not read all of the books like my kids. But that is it's a lot, and I don't even have all of them here, but the Green Ember series. So I'm going to tell you about Green Ember because I read the first original 4 books. I did audiobooks. They're phenomenal. And then I also read them on my own, and I've read them aloud to my kids. And our copy is getting a little worn because my kids have reread them so many times. Keep in mind, the Green Ember has 4 original books. Then it has these spin-offs, which are like prequels and tell about the land beforehand. So, you choose what order you want to read it. And then there was a new book that came out at Christmas, which I will touch on here in a minute. But Green Ember, now we're doing woodland animals, but the main characters are rabbits. This one also this book particularly, well, I was going to say it's not as intense as the others, but it's pretty intense, and it's pretty intense right at the beginning. So you follow Heather and Pickett. My name's Heather, so already, usually I don't like books that have my name in it, but this Heather in this book, she wins my heart. And they're brother and sister, and they are just young, not young children, but they are young rabbits. And they realize after a tragedy with their family that they have not been told the true state of the world. And through all that, they become swept up in a huge war that is going on between the rabbits and the birds of prey and wolves, who are the villains in this. And they uncover a lot of family secrets. They also uncover a lot of the royal secrets throughout the journeys. There's just a lot going on in here, but this is one of our all-time favorite books. It is sweet. It is wonderful. And one of the things I love about all 3 books that I shared today, they're all written by Christian authors to an extent. So keep that in mind. But Sam Smith, who writes these books, does just a phenomenal job. And you follow Heather and Pickett, but then you also follow Smalls, and their uncle, who they discover. And I'm going to give you a hint. We have a friend who read till, I think, this book. And then she discovered thought that a character died. And she stopped reading the books. It's that intense. Like, your heart is broken. You got to keep reading, okay? I'm not going to give anything else away. But even though your heart's broken, you've got to read to Ember's End, as we told this young friend. Keep reading, because it has a good ending. Some animals, some creatures, some characters die. Your heart will break. But it is good, and all is well in the Mended Wood. And so just really want to go and continue reading the series. But it is phenomenal. I loved it. But it does have some intense. It has some great little battle scenes. I think they're perfect for boys or girls. All 3 of these books a lot of times tend to be boy books because the main characters are boys. But my girls I have 7 daughters. My youngest 2 are 5 and infant, 10 months, you know, so they don't really know them as well. But all my other girls have loved every single one of these books and loved listening to them, and they are diehard favorite characters, so I highly recommend them for boys or girls, and they are perfect family read-alouds. I will say this is the newest one, and I have not read it. I just got it for my kids for Christmas, but my child, who is obsessed with it, read it within the first few days after Christmas, I think maybe 2. And this tells a backstory of one of the main characters, Helmer here, who is one of the soldiers in the Ember series. So those are my 3 recommendations for animal fantasy. I'll come back and share some princess fantasy and some sci-fi fantasy and a couple other things. If there is a fantasy children's genre, the topic you want me to talk about, let me know. I will try to touch on it. But like I said, my kids love these 3. So Redwall, Miss Mantle, and the Green Ember. Oh dear heavens, they're so heavy. And I highly recommend all of these. There are some great printings out there with maps in them. They have some great illustrations in some of the versions. So go check them out. There are lots of different options, and all 3 of them, I can vouch for saying that they have some phenomenal audio versions out there as well. So if you have any questions, drop them below. If you have an animal-focused fantasy that your family just loved, drop it below, because everybody wants to know and enjoys those kind of stories. Thank you again for watching, and have a blessed day.